What's that?
Matches impedance, right?
Yeah.
So feels like a really hot signal.
Well, you're going into an AM model too. Yeah. What session number is this?
Oh,
44? Welcome everyone to session 44.
44.
44.
Are you? Oh. 44.
Oh, wow.
It's been a weird day.
Yeah. Heard. Say something then Mike again.
Something into that mic again. Check. There is a reverb. Now there is not.
I feel like you're going into the front end of that amp sim really
Really hot.
hard.
Yeah.
So isn't there like a drive knob on that? Start backing that down. Sounds like your delay has some sort of distortion in it.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm only hearing the crush on the reverb tail, or I mean on the delay, like tail or whatever. I don't know.
So
Isn't there, like I said, there's a drive knob on the amp sim.
pretty much all the way
What?
down.
Okay.
This drives all the way down as well. You're right about it being on the return. What happens if I change the rate and the depth? Maybe that's what's doing it. Still a little bit of distortion.
That's very strange. I don't quite understand it.
Okay. Rate and depth are all the way down again. Now I'm gonna turn them up. They're at noon.
That's so weird 'cause it doesn't sound like delay tones. It sounds like flange tones.
Yeah. That sounds better. Turn me up. I was pretty low.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this chain right now.
Let me try something.
I mean, unless you think that driver DI there that we're using at the end is the problem, you could swap out for the
It isn't, because this was happening at home too.
let's say you could swap out for the IR loader, 'cause that's gonna probably do less.
sagging the power of the echo, so maybe that's what's causing it.
Why do you think that's what's going on?
Yeah, it could be. I'm not giving it enough milliamps.
Why would that be? I mean, you get a fairly beefy supply there, right?
I'm sending it only 100, and it technically takes more. It takes like 300.
Is it the fattest tap it has on there?
No, I can give it more. I was just saying I gotta figure out.
Yeah, it's probably worth a try. Because I feel like that Akai did weird things when we didn't give it enough power either. I don't know. Maybe it's related.
Yeah, you leave him. I love you. Yeah, that's a little. I'm a little concerned about that, actually.
That's very odd to me.
It's like whatever the It's like I'm clipping it, the input.
Yeah.
But
Which doesn't make sense because, to be honest, that guitar is not exactly hot in terms of output.
no.
So it makes no sense.
And
I mean, you have that compressor out front, right?
I'm-
I mean, you can mess with the level on that a little, right? What happens if you pull level down on that?
well, the other thing we got to consider is it's only on the return that it's distorted.
That's even weirder.
It's like whatever the loop mechanism is in the pedal, it might be distorting.
That's so weird. Well, I mean, it's like tape, but just tape driven too hard, you know?
Okay, maybe I figured it out. Maybe it's a setting. If that's a setting that I can mess with, that's cool. I didn't read this in the manual. I felt like I've read it enough times I would have known about it, but because now listen. Oh. This might be something worth exploring today. Because it's like, okay, so now listen to it. I guess it's a little distorted.
How about now? Oh, yeah. That sounds pretty good. I feel like now we need to get that amp dialed up a bit, though.
Distortion's gone. Now it's just clean. I think. Let me. I'm gonna move something, and we'll see if that fixes or changes it back to the distorted sound. Hold that down. Pull that this way. So I think what this does, this knob here, is it changes the clip of the return. The threshold. It's like in the tape.
It's like the record gain, basically.
Yeah, that's so cool. They call it manual on here. I didn't know what it meant, but now it.
Are you up all the way on the guitar and stuff?
Yeah.
We have drive back in, compression, however you like it.
There's no drive on the Morning Glory, unfortunately. Should I add a little? See where that's at. I'm really glad we figured out what that manual knob means. I'm gonna dirty it up a little bit then.
Drums are kind of slamming today, too.
That made me really happy. I went from feeling concerned to feeling really excited about the potential with that pedal. I like the way that trails.
It sounds like you figured out something you like.
Got a little distortion on that record head now, dude.
I like it.
That's cool. I didn't know about that. See, I was building this pedal board up earlier today, and I leaned over at one point. I remember pushing down a couple buttons, and maybe it was plugged in. I must have turned some knobs, and it just so happened to have found that distorted sound. That's really interesting.
I like it.
I like it too.
It's a neat touch.
I'm really happy. I'm really happy it wasn't broken. And by the way, that jam we just did, that was really fun. Is that like a 6/8 feel? Oh, no, it's not. I'm gonna set that tape to get darker. A little more feedback.
Now we're getting into like desert rock territory, dude.
You know I like desert rock.
God, I love how dry that is.
Like the bones of the discarded corpses that you might find in the middle of the desert. Couldn't make it to Oasis.
Interesting groove.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that's something.
Hold up, so you can find a more efficient way to play it.
rock and roll.
Rock and roll, baby.
That's so good. Hey, secret weapon on this Echoes, huh?
Hey.
I didn't know anything about that. I'm sorry I didn't. Oh, to my past self.
My apologies.
To my past self.
Robert Keeley. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh man, I find that's interesting. There's a tendency to want to get something new because it seems really cool, and there's all these jam-packed features that people, they'll show off all those things. But I go through my equipment that I already have, and there's so many hidden secrets. It's like there's a tendency to want to get something new to kind of drive to a certain tone or to chase some kind of thing, or you think you need it. But I've come to realize that just exploring your own gear is just as fulfilling as getting the newest, greatest thing.
I'm 100% with you. I was just having that thought, honestly, while we were just jamming there, thinking about, because I went back and listened to some of our really old sessions, just 'cause I wanted to see what we were doing then. I almost had forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad, you guys. It's really bad. But everything starts somewhere, right? And we just kind of went whole hog right away. Like, oh, we know what we're doing. It's like,
a little bit
shit,
of an
not really.
impulsiveness to it.
Yeah, a little bit. But my point is, nothing sounded anything like this then,
Right.
And this is at the end of the day, though, it's the same drums, it's the same guitars,
That's right.
pretty much the same pedals.
Pretty much,
everything's nothing's really changed other than we put time into squeezing a little bit more life out of the stuff we got.
And that is what it's like. It's like trying to get a little more juice out of those oranges. You got to do it, and when you do, it's fulfilling. So
my good buddy.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if anyone's out there trying to get the latest greatest thing, maybe explore what you got a little more, because I don't know, save you some money.
Maybe other things that you're not thinking of that something could stand in for, or whatever.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say my buddy Tim was over here a week or two ago, something like that, and we were commenting on the fact that these drums, at least some set of them, this is a combination of a couple of different kits, but the toms and the snare are from a kit that Tim sold me when I was probably about 22. And other than the various iterations of trying to kind of get something set up over at the house you were at previously,
Yep.
they didn't really ever get set up or used or touched. In fact, they lived for a good 4 years of their life probably underneath someone's porch, outside. It's a sad story kind of, but it's also a redeeming story because it's crazy what these are sounding like. And shout out to Tony. I mean, he picked the right heads, the right configuration. He picked the correct drums. He couldn't have been more right about all of this.
Yeah.
So, props. Because I can play a little bit of drums. I'm pretty limited in what I know. But what I don't know a lot of times is where do I want to go with this to really squeeze the next thing I'm looking for out of it. And just he made some very good decisions up front that were just they paid off later when I realized wait, I could make it sound like that if I change this thing. And it's oh, I already have that. I just need to adjust it a little bit. Maybe I should spend some time on that. So between that and same thing with our mic setup on this, it's just we actually have hi-hats in the mix, and it's
cool.
It's everything's good about it.
Yeah, we haven't really adjusted the mic setup from a few weeks back when we did that experiment.
My shout out to Dave Herline. Dave's my secret weapon, just absolute bank of knowledge kind of guy, right? I mean, he's done a little bit of everything in production, so it's in real world situations. So a lot of times if I'm just have some off the wall idea, I'll just throw it at him and be like, what do you think of that? And sometimes he'll say, yeah, I've kind of seen something like that done before, but this is how they did it.
Yeah.
Or he'll be oh yeah, this was messed up some at some point some way, and we had to do this to get over it or whatever. So you're dealing with a snapshot into someone else's problem solving. And the under mic idea came from him, because he was you're kind of live, you don't really you're not treated in a certain way. And we got talking about it all, and now it's great. I mean, everything's perfect.
Yeah, sounds good. You're the man, Dave.
And we haven't even between that and adjusting the way we're doing our compression on all the talking mics, you know, our vocal mics, like we don't even turn them off anymore.
No.
And that was like something I got from Audio Tree's engineer. Like, I wish I could remember the guy's name offhand. My apologies. But yeah, he did a video with kind of him and his partner in crime talking about their production values for Audio Tree, and he was like, yeah, he's like, at some point you realize you can't really get rid of the bleed, so you might as well just figure out how to make it part of the mix you're looking for.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like shape your vocal and talking mics in such a way that you don't hate what you're hearing in it, even though it's not really all the things you want, you know?
Right.
And that approach has been golden here as well. I mean, I could sit here and I could sing behind the drum kit and it wouldn't be weird if I just left this mic on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy.
It is.
You were so right the other day. We never play anything in 3.
We need to.
You know? I was trying to figure out how to swing just a 4 feel to almost kind of feel like that.
You'd play in 6/8 and pretend it's 3/4, but then swing that, right?
Yeah.
Because that
it's
6/8
like a
divides
really
into 4.
fast 6, you know?
Yeah.
You're right. I'm obviously not going to play the kick on the 16th.
Colt. You know that song, right? Yep. The drum beat's pretty much the same. trying to find like different intervals.
Ooh, that's good.
lost it there.
I have no idea.
I didn't like how it sounded when it got broken up. I think it's a little too tinny. a little bit. I think it's the.
I don't hate it. If there was bass, it wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah, the cab. I don't like the way the cab is breaking it up. I think I could maybe tune that up a little bit. Yeah, it's like a very digital distortion.
Move over here a little bit. Drink some coffee and chat with you a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll put on the. Wonderful.
I like it. Some tasty little jams there, dude.
Yeah, I was a big fan of those. So, on my to-do list for the week is going to be explore the echoes oversaturation effect that you get from that knob called manual. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm blown away.
I mean, that's one of my favorite effects to get out of like a tape delay or like a tape related emulation, right?
Yeah.
The sound of like just slightly oversaturating the record heads.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do that with the Kramer master tape plugin.
That's
the
a
Waves
good
plugin.
plugin.
I like it for that because it literally does that specific sound really well. The saturating the record heads with too much signal.
Yeah.
And I like it.
That board we got at my house, speaking of saturation, I wrote a few songs this week experimenting around the concept of oversaturating or I guess overloading those circuits.
Yeah.
And I was running my microKORG, which already inherently has some very warm sounds.
Oh,
I was running into that with just a little subtle, not the overload light only came on a little bit, but just enough where it was just this tasteful little bite on the edges. And I recorded some stuff, and then I also did the same with my mini log, and I fed it a bunch of reverb to just overload the circuit with the reverb, just trailing. Dude.
That was the sound, huh?
That was it.
Damn. That's cool.
So to synchronize everything up, I set up. Remember how I bought that MIDI 4x4, that cheap Chinese like?
Yeah, the MIDI interface, or whatever.
Yeah, so I set up one of my computers, the one you made me. That one is in charge of sending all the MIDI data to my synth environment. So if I want to write parts, I can write it on that computer, which is synchronized with the main workstation, and use them as outboard synths where I don't have to. The reason I ran it that way is because if you run in Logic itself, you have to build an additional busing in there to deal with like audio that you want to self-record.
Yep.
So I did this externally where like I don't have to worry about that in the main computer, and I program a bunch of audio in there, and then I synchronize it with the synthesizers that are in the actual plug-in synthesizers. So I was making these really large, beautiful, like just synth.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the stuff that we want to be able to do.
We've wanted to do that for a
really long time.
And the other added benefit to that.
I'm so glad there's a line mixer over there, man. Like,
that was the game changer. Just like here, when we got that mix board and that started this whole thing, it's honestly, I think, a sleeper. Like, people don't talk about that. Maybe because of where people came from with this whole concept, where most people had a mix board because of the previous way of doing things.
Or understand too, man, it's not the modern workflow. Like,
yeah,
nowadays most people would tell you if you get, and this is not bad advice, right? You get like an antelope or like a universal audio kind of interface where it actually has like, we'll just say an emulation of like a mixer in it.
Yeah.
So most of the things you want to do, like you could just straight up do inside their software.
You save on space.
So exactly. People are looking at it going, oh, wait, I could just spend a little more on this one device and have, less things to worry about. Like, that's attractive to people, you know? But at the same time, if you have the space, I feel like the understanding you gain of, like, just routing and, like, the concept of it, not even so much like, oh, it's analog, so it's better. No, I just mean, like, the idea of like, well, to get this sound, like this is going to need to go from here to there to there to there, and it's going to do these things on the way, and I'll end up with this at the end.
Yep.
that idea of like working through things that way, it directly applies to the plugin world too. You know, you could do the same kind of stuff with plugins, but I enjoy being able to just walk up to hardware and just do something with it.
Yes.
So I feel like it's more about the idea of like most people, if they do own a bunch of like say outboard stuff, like I know a couple artists currently that are doing this, where typically the way they work when they want to record something or play with something, they take the time to hook it up and they make some parts and whatever. I've noticed those people tend to lean into like a particular instrument really heavily though. Like if they started on one, they'll probably make more parts that came from that instrument. And I think that's driven by the whole, well, I didn't have to unhook it and hook up something else. Whether that's said or not, you know what I mean? So even if I've always thought that even if it wasn't set up in such a way that could record those things easily, just being able to hear the output of all the things that I can see in front of me and not have it be all right, well, oh, you want to hear that now? All right, well, you know, let me see if I can find a place to plug that in or whatever, you know. Now it just feels like,
work.
Oh, yeah, you want to make something? Like, let's just make something.
Yeah, it's effortless. You'd say the what do you call it? The friction isn't there anymore.
Yeah, so I'm saying like even the side benefits that you've managed to come up with like clever, you know, routing and busing to take advantage of recording and this and that, like that's all great. But just having a mixer, something that can take in a bunch of sources and just let you hear everything at once, even if it isn't set up to be able to record it all, is still a big deal if you're just at a point where you're like, you know, for example, you write a little ditty and it's got a little bit of like a rhythm section or something going on, and you go, man, that could maybe wonder how that would sound with some pianos. It's like, well, if everything's already hooked up, I can just walk over to the piano and play a little lick and see if I think it sounds good. I mean, I'm not saying like I'm going to record that or take that or need that for something, but just for the purpose of being creative and being in that moment and going, I wonder about this, and just being able to try it real quick. Even though you're not committing to it yet, it's the experimenting phase.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do it. There's no friction. Like you said, you didn't have to hook anything up or set up anything at all.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Me too.
And I've seen other artists and other groups, that people that work collaboratively kind of the way we do, and seeing them have great success with setups where it's like you can kind of walk in there together and kind of just see what shakes out, because everybody can kind of just grab whatever they think that next piece is that it needs, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know? And if you want to use everything, use everything. If you want to use 2 instruments because that's what it calls for, then use those.
Yeah.
But they were already there, and they were ready for you to start doing something.
So there's a perfect feedback system, and we'll talk about this on Tuesday on the Skylight Huddle podcast.
Which, by the way, like, congrats on a bunch of episodes at this point, man. Like you're really blazing through.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I might catch up.
I appreciate the grind. It's awesome.
Yeah. So on, I think it was Wednesday, I found something out inadvertently. I planned on doing this, but I just didn't realize the potential. And it has to do with my polyend tracker, which I recently got back from Sweetwater. The new one. I had to exchange it. I had a problem with my jog wheel, which I heard is a common problem with one of the first models.
Sure.
So I replaced that and hadn't given it much thought. I just knew I wanted it to be a part of my system. I get it out of the box. I set it all up. And I'm thinking it'd be really cool to have a feedback system where if I'm working on a project and I want to just like kind of take it somewhere with me, I could record some samples real fast into my polyend and then like go somewhere.
Oh, you just take an aux or something off the board into the...
So yeah, I took the tape out and ran it right into the board.
That's just what you hear.
And then I realized something. My polyend at that time was running back into the board. So here's what happens.
So you're doubling it like out of phase or something? Or?
No, nothing like that happened. It's all independent of itself. Because when I'm recording into the polyend tracker, it cuts out any sound output. So I can set it to do that. It doesn't monitor it. So I recorded the samples in there. Well, then I realized I could turn that thing back on and play that sound back, send it through the mix board again back into the DAW, and give it another layer of like graininess of saturation.
Yeah. Yeah, if you wanted to grid it up, just run it through the analog gear.
On top of that, I could also slice up all the samples, do some weird stuff. I know the new Logic allows you to do this, but I can slice them all up in a certain way with the MIDI time code already running on the sequence. and build these analog like basically running through analog board triggering of the samples I just recorded from the DAW, so I could have a part of the song that's playing, all the synthesizers and stuff real smooth and clean, and then there could be a breakdown part where it glitches everything up and adds into the creative flow, so it becomes this feedback loop of just constant creativity that I find extremely easy to work with.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like almost unbelievably easy, to the point where I feel like I'm making really, really good stuff for cheap. Like, doesn't take time, and it doesn't take energy.
That's part of why I want to get into at some point. I don't know where or when it's exactly going to happen, but at some point I would like to get into the idea of just building like we have one here, right? But everything's pretty static in terms of how it's set up. There's a pretty tall, what is this, like a 30 space rack or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, the point is to have something to just mount a bunch of random pieces of equipment in and just patch bay them. You know what I mean? So that you could just be like, oh, what about this into that? What about this into that? Then that flexibility, like think Euro rack flexibility, but just for audio in general.
Just in general, yeah.
Because if you have some piece of gear where you're like, boy, I love the saturation out of that. It's like, well, fuck it. You want to throw that on your 2-bus? Sure, go for it. Patch it up and record it back through. Like, that's how anybody does it anyway. That's how any of the mastering engineers that have like outboard like gear, they really like. It's like that's what they're doing. They just hook up chains of it in the way they like, play the mix back out through good converters right into the front end of whatever chain of equipment they like, and then literally record the output back in. Like.
Yeah.
And what they chose to put in that chain and what it was doing is probably different for everything that comes through. So I like that kind of flexibility where it's like you might decide you like certain things. Like at that point, then I would get into the idea of owning a couple of pieces of nice gear, like, a nice stereo bus compressor, because it's like, shit, I could use that for bus glue on something. I could use it for some sort of character on a specific instrument. I could also use it for just printing final mixes through, to just get them to sound just the way I want, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I feel like if you don't have the flexibility to just kind of send anything anywhere you want and just see what happens, some of it is one of those like, what, am I going to just install it in my rack and run my output through it and that's the end of it? Like, that's not creative. There's nothing fun about that. There's nothing sexy about that. Like, oh, I have this cool thing. But if it's like, oh, I can try this in any different spot or function and just see if I like it or not, I like that.
Yeah.
And we've been able to do it with so much other stuff like synths and pedals and everything else. It's like, how fun would it be to have one more step of that, which would be some outboard stuff and patching, like patch bays.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I mean, it lends itself to, again, removing friction. You can get to your ideas quicker. Sometimes you get lost in the weeds and in the turnaround of moving equipment and changing cables and all that.
It also, I feel like, comes back to what we talked about before, the idea of like being a little more committal in the process as well. Because if you have a step where you go, like, just here's an example, and granted the plugin version's great, so shout outs to Waves. The API 2500 is fantastic in there. It's just so good. But like, if you say you had a real one, right, and you're like, I'm going to print my mixes through this. Well, at the point that you decide that you're going to take the time to sit there and get the settings just right and get it really gluing the right way, it's like the time you print that mix, that's the time it sounded like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's like a moment in time where the knobs were that way and it reacted that way when that signal went through it. In a way you can't really quite go back to that ever. So it's like you better, you
captured that moment.
And that's
and
it.
You have to appreciate it for what it is.
And you have to just appreciate it for it. That was it. What it was supposed to be then.
Those little nuance changes when you're playing stuff, that is a subconscious thing that I think wasn't understood entirely maybe for years until the digital world. Like, I think some of the music, I don't know because I didn't do much analog. I came into the music making scene with the digital sense, but you'd write stuff on a computer. This is from my point of view. You'd write stuff on a computer and it sounds so dry and boring, but you know the part's good, or at least you hope it is. And you get done and you're like, okay, well, how do I make this more interesting? And you do a little Google searching, like, how do I make my music sound more interesting? These hi-hats sound dry, or like this synth arpeggiation sounds dry. Well, then you start realizing that there's something called automation and there's something called modulation, and you can mess around with certain features to, spice up the movement. So it's always changing. And it got me wondering if, like, back when they were recording originally, like song ideas, that was just something that came with the territory. Every time a part was played, depending on where the guitar was in the rotation, going into the microphones, or whether or not the amplifier was cooperating that day, was it a little humid that day or whatever, all these little variables change things, where in a computer sterile environment, it doesn't. So I had a thought that possibly it probably was just this inherent thing that, like, someone like me thinking about going into music and how I'd approach writing a part, you think, well, it's as simple as just putting the part down, just the information out there. Well, then you have to, like, also fabricate your own inconsistencies to make it feel like it's a live part or a feeling of thing, which I don't know if that was entirely inherent. Like, when back in, I guess you could go as far back as like the 50s or earlier.
Well, I mean, I can tell you this. The feedback loop of, like, playing through real gear is definitely, there's a magic in that can't be replicated. Like, here's an example. I do a lot of, heavier music that I record, and most of that is, like, DI into, various amp and cabinet simulations and stuff. And I like that. It's a clean way to work. You have total control over everything. But if you're trying to play the part, and it's a part where you're feeling it, I guess, like, you know what it is when you're playing something and you're like, this feels correct. This is what's supposed to be here. And all the pressure's on you to play it well, right? Because you've like eliminated all the technical everything. It's all down to, like, are you gonna play it good or not? And even if you have the perfect setup with, like, really low latency and everything else, that sterileness you're talking about, the fact that, like, every time I chug that, power chord open thing on my 7-string, it pretty much sounds identical. There's something lost in that, because it almost doesn't, it almost feels like, and this is like so cheap to say this, but it almost feels like you're on autopilot. Like, no matter what you play into it, it's just basically going to come out the same, in a way.
Yeah.
Even when I'm recording, like, some of the stuff like tones I've found, riffs I've wrote down here lately, playing through this amp, because it's tube and because there's weird things that just happen with it and it reacts strangely to certain things, when something weird happens that kind of, like, gets that reaction out of you, where you're like, ooh, what was that? It makes you, like, lean into it more to like get something out of it that, like you said, is, like, more about the moment than anything. Right. Where it's like, ooh, like, because of the way this weird resonance is, it makes this set of chords sound really pretty, these voicings or whatever. And so you're like, well, can I make a whole riff structure around that voice?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now you're in, like, creative mode again, and all that it took was just hearing a weird, like, inconsistency from a piece of equipment. Right. So I've found that even when I'm recording those parts, like, I've been talking for a while about, I want a low wattage tube amp, because when I'm recording these parts DI, I'd still like to hear what I'm playing, not monitored through the DAW.
Yeah.
Even though it is going to be DI, and I'll clean it up and it'll be gated and pretty and whatever, right? At the time I'm doing the recording, I want to be hearing that feedback loop and that reaction that makes you do things different. Just because it reacted different to what you did. It's dynamic.
It's important. And getting into the whole music thing, I didn't realize all that. It's interesting though. I'm starting to appreciate it more and more, and that's, I think, why part of the reason why I like to commit to audio sooner in the process, because with plugins getting new, like, you have tape emulation plugins and things that, or delays or those kind of things. Every time there is a large possibility that every time you play MIDI data into a tape emulator, every single time you play it's going to be different. So, like, sometimes I want to, like, commit that, sooner.
That's true of a lot of things. That's one of the reasons I told you, like, most of the time when I'm sending you mixes that I'm pretty happy with, almost all the time I've been bouncing down if I have like MIDI drums, or if I have like say I did something through like Waves Tune for like getting some kind of pitch thing, or like maybe I used Flex or something.
Yeah.
I always bounce those out because, like you said, technically every time I play it back, the outcome could be changed slightly. So as soon as I get it to that point where I'm like, yep, I like that, it's like, all right, then bounce it. Like, if you really need to change it, you can bounce again, but just commit to it.
Me and Katie and I actually discussed that. We were working on one of her songs. This is months ago. And this is when I was coming into this concept, this idea of, committing to things sooner in the process when you like something. There was a guitar part that she enjoyed. Where she slid her finger across the guitar, and it caused the delay and the reverb to react in a certain way from the recording, right?
Yep.
She's like, could you play that part back for me, that part specifically? And try as we might, we couldn't find it. But when you'd play the whole song straight through, it was there. And we realized all the things that came before it was impacting the way the delay and reverb sounded at that moment.
Other things like feeding into it or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that caused me to make the realization that if she really likes that, I need to render this right now as a solid piece of audio.
Definitely.
So I was just baffled. I'm like, because we'd play. I was like, I had to apologize to her at one point. I told her, I am so sorry. I think I lost it, and that's not really the kind of thing you want to tell anyone you're working with.
No.
If they like a part that you lost it. But then when we played it back, I'm like, it magically reappeared, and we didn't find that out until like an hour later. So that's what led me to understand that, and so you have to make the choice. I don't think it's always like you should always do that, because if you're still like doing timing and you're still doing those kind of things, some of those things can really mess up. Like if you're messing with delays and reverbs and you render it down, but you still have to make like rhythmic adjustments, don't do the rhythmic adjustments first before you do the timing stuff, because unless you're trying to do it in a glitchy way.
I mean, those are the kind of things though that like you kind of fall into those sensibilities as you're working through the project and see like who you're working with and like how they flow with it, right?
Right.
If they have the time and patience for you to like get all those things right, fine, but sometimes you don't have that either, though.
Right.
And
That's
you just
true.
have to be happy with it.
So you have to test the waters and decide on. But yeah, I've learned a lot this year, and I think you mentioned earlier how our stream has gotten better, and so in that way I'd say the music. I think the music has gotten better too. A lot of the things we play down here is more. I think there's more quality, or at least potential, than there used to be.
I agree. Anything? I would say I'm pretty much ready there.
Yeah, I feel good.
But is there anything we want to?
Yeah, just
discuss. I guess probably just doing Tuesday. Oh,
yeah.
Potentially, Tuesday may have to be like I may not be able to be there till more like say 3 because I've got to go and see clients, and I even have this weird feeling in mind that says I shouldn't even like commit to being able to do it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's
just
fine.
Because I don't know. I just don't know. Tuesday's going to be a rough day for me.
We can talk about that after this, but that would be totally fine. But the
point is,
with me.
I'd still like to do something this week. I'd like to, whether it's Tuesday or not, I'd like to stream with you at some point and do something creative. Well, I kind of rely on that.
I will be streaming Tuesday as per usual. I have things set up in a way now where it's extremely easy to get going. I don't have to do anything other than hit start stream, which is really cool. I've wanted to be there for a while, so it's effortless for me. Yeah, if you want to come through another week or another day, that'd be totally fine. So just don't even plan on Tuesday, I think, if there's that much going on,
Yeah, if it makes no difference to you, I might just say I can't do Tuesday, just for the decrease in pressure for me that way.
Yeah.
Makes me feel better about everything.
Yeah, go focus and handle your business, man.
Right. So then, I don't know. We'll figure out what we're going to do then with that.
Well, with that said, then, we'll see Jon later this week. I'll be on Tuesday, and keep viewing what we're up to. And again, the usual, skylighthuddle@gmail.com. If you want to email me about, being a guest or potentially just have a question about something, pertaining to what you see on the stream, go ahead and email.
And the same can be said about what we're doing here every Sunday. Vibe Unit media at vibeunit.com is the best email. I've heard from a couple of you recently about figuring out some potential stuff, so I'm really excited to talk to you and meet with you and figure out what we can do. There's something else. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is just wanted to again mention that we are talking about getting something together, maybe like a monthly or bi-monthly kind of get-together that is not streamed, broadcast, whatever, just to try to pull some folks together and just no pressure, just jam, play around, whatever. So a couple people I've been talking to about that, too. They're into it. And
awesome.
So when I have more information about that, I'll make sure that gets put out, too, both on our pages and whatnot, but also announced here.
Something comes to mind in pertaining to that. This has become kind of, I guess, a showcase in a way of what we do here. And to be more, user-friendly and also to scratch an itch of we just like playing music with other musicians, we wanted to offer the opportunity to play in this environment without the pressure of the stream being involved. We had conversations with some of our musician friends, and they've all kind of mentioned the same thing where, sometimes it's a lot of pressure to be on a stream and also being documented for all time.
I get it, because even every time I'm playing, I'm just like, yeah, I suck, I'm worthless, no one's going to like this, and someone's probably going to find out I don't know shit, and that's terrifying. And so I get all of it.
I do too. When I get frozen up on stream, it takes practice, but it is very difficult to weather that storm.
Yeah.
You feel a little bit off.
So
imposter syndrome is a thing that happens regardless of your skill level.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. So yeah, we're very transparent about that and understanding of what that is. So yeah, the idea is to try to eliminate some of that and come up with a nice night or afternoon, whatever it is that works for the most people. Or more of them, if it's got to do two, if we have to do 2 a month for everyone to be interested to have a night to do it, then great. But
we'll definitely scale up determining the interest.
Yeah, so hit us up for that too. It doesn't have to be about playing a Sunday.
No.
If you just want to just get together with some other musicians, let me know. Get a hold of us and let us know if there's a certain day or time that's just good for you. It's probably one of those things where I'm just going to try to wait until I've kind of gathered a sense of that from whoever's involved, and then come up with some potential options hey, what about this date, or this date kind of thing, right? And then see what we can put together. So unfortunately that won't be shown here, but it'll be a good time. And I think we'll all get to enjoy each other's company and that kind of vibe, that we're trying to really enjoy it.
Because that is half of what this is about.
At least, if not more.
So, community building and just having a place to play music as a form of therapy is extremely beneficial. It has been for me.
So, yeah, the idea is to try to offer that to others. So, yeah, if you have any input on that, send that over as well so I can start thinking of potential times to get everybody over here and do it.
That sounds very good.
So, with that, I think... play me off. I think that's it, man. Another Vibe Unit in the books. I'm actually kind of excited to go back and hear, especially that first jam we did. That I was really getting into it. So cool. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.